Okay, we are here at the Museum of Black World War II History in Pownell, Vermont, or October of 2011, a beautiful fall afternoon. And we're here with the founder and curator, Bruce Bird. Mr. Bird, what motivated you to start a museum, and especially here in Vermont?
Well, I've been studying World War II, reading the history. I've been building models. I've been collecting militaria since the 1950s.
So since you were a young man?
Since I was, as I say, knee-high.
Yeah, I was a World War II buff because my dad was a World War II veteran, very proud of his, and I'd found myself at Harvard Square going to the used bookstores, and of course in those days, in the late 60s, early 70s, there were lots of veterans that were alive and relatively young, but my age, and we had a lot to share, so you probably, just a few years older than I am, probably can remember all these wonderful people. Yeah,
but I didn't know there was 1.1 million blacks in the Second World War until after 2000. And I had one idea running around my head that I'd like to do a military museum. With the 1990s, the military bases started closing, so I knew I was not going to get into the military museum, so I'd have to start my own, and I had to really wait till I retired. And it was a case of everything happened at the same time. The building became available. I finally decided on what my subject would be, and my back started giving me trouble, so I thought I'd take an early retirement. And I decided that, you know, blacks had done their job and they hadn't gotten any credit for it, and someone should do something about it.
Or as much as they should have, definitely, yeah.
And, you know, when you say that, you're the someone every time.
Right, yeah. You're the they. They should do something about it. You become they.
The they becomes me very quickly.
I know the feeling, and that's okay. You know?
Yeah, well, so I did. Yeah. And we've been here. This is the end of our 6th season. And our 7th season will start up in Stamford, Connecticut.
So you're relocating to Stamford, Connecticut. So your website is, so people can, right now you don't know exactly where it will be.
Don't know where it's going to be.
And if folks, you're watching this video somewhere around the world, maybe you know a place that you could actually help out. Because these little private museums, I'm sure you're not getting millions of dollars from big foundations to do this.
Big foundations do not know we exist.
And also, there's probably people watching this that may know some World War II veterans that would offer memorabilia to this wonderful little place. So what's your website?
My website is black ww2, and that is the number 2, museum.org.
And then be able to contact you and with questions or...
You have to go through my website, which is brucewbird@gmail.com.
That's your email address.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, this sort of museum is kind of small. We've got an in with the mayor at Stamford, Connecticut, so we're going to get.
It's a little bit bigger of a city than I would say Pownell.
Well, Pownell. There's 3 parts of Pownell. And there's 3,500 people in all 3 parts.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And there's 118,000 people in Stamford, Connecticut.
In Stamford, so, and you're right off 95, so should have a better... Can you tell us a little bit about your collection? It's very interesting. Here I see some of course, a nice library of books.
Yeah.
That all of us World War II buffs have. And,
such as these.
Now, do you have any contacts with black World War II veterans?
Very few.
Yeah.
The black population of Vermont is about non-existent.
It's pretty small, yeah.
So that is a problem. When I get to Stamford, I expect there will be a lot.
To find some more, yeah. I know I have a friend who's a collector of autographs, military and political, and he's actually met some of Tuskegee Airmen. I'm not sure of any. Might be some living, might be a few. I'm sure there's relatives, and they have their reunions. You know, some of the Doolittle Raiders. In fact, my son and I met a few of the Doolittle Raiders about 5 or 6 years ago. It was quite an experience. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a little spot here, and we hope, I'll just take a little bit of a little view. That's my daughter, Georgia, in the picture here. Shows you some of the, looks like some of the German tanks, the models. Are these the models that you made?
Yes.
Yeah. And some of the American tanks, which I don't think were as good as the German tanks.
Yes, but they were more numerous.
But they were more numerous, and you had, what was the plane, Nathaniel, that was used to knock out the tanks, the A-10, what was it? What was the tank destroyer? The two-tailed devil they used to call it?
Well, that was the P-38.
The P-38. Was that used against a lot of the German artillery?
It was used on ground attack also. Matter of fact, it was used particularly in the Normandy invasion for the simple reason that it had such a distinct silhouette. And the British used the Spitfire for the same reason. Because the Navy has a tendency to shoot at everything.
Oh yes, and there was a lot. Yes.
So does the Army. So there's always a problem with people opening fire at, it's an airplane, I'm shooting at it. Well, the Germans made a raid on the Normandy beach. 2 planes. That was their raid
during
the day.
They lost most of their air superiority pretty quickly.
14,000 or something like that.
Incredible.
So that they.
And so there were some recent movies. Pearl Harbor. That was the movie Pearl Harbor, and Cuba Gooding was starred as a sailor. I believe he was a cook. Do you remember his name? The real name?
That was Dory Miller.
Dory Miller. That's correct. Yes, Dory Miller, and he was told to go down, ordered to go down below side, and he refused to do that. And he manned the gun. He was not trained on that weapon, but he shot down a number of Japanese attack craft, and of course General Patton was commended a unit. They were not a combat unit, but they decided to act in combat, and he said they were very courageous. And interesting that the War for Independence saw a lot of black Americans fight alongside their white colleagues or co-countrymen at Bunker Hill, at Lexington, in New York. Even though it was not officially encouraged, that did happen. And I tell folks about Prince Estabrook. I did a little video about Prince Estabrook, one of the men that was wounded at Lexington. At the time, he was a slave. But he did get his freedom and lived a very prosperous life, and is buried in the town of Ashby, where you can visit his very modest gravesite. And personally, I don't like the notion of black history or white history. I just think that blacks and whites have had a lot to offer this country, and I don't think we should segregate history like we segregated other things.
Yeah, we got a Black History Month, and they didn't do anything for the other 11 months. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, but I think that it's important to have a lot, pride in the history of our nation, and a lot of this. Here's a focus. Here's a. James Rickard was 19 when his truck company drove in the famous Red Ball Express, the U.S. supply lifeline that allowed frontline units to advance and force a German retreat from France. Over just 3 months, drivers delivered 412 tons of gas, food, ammo, and other material around the clock. So there was a black Tuskegee Airmen unit also